Imagine starting a clothing company with just 30,000 rupees. You scale it to a 1,000 crore valuation, you secure massive venture funding, and you capture the attention of an entire generation. Then, a few years later, you sell it all at an 80% discount. That is exactly what happened to Bewakoof. In 2012, India's demographics offered a massive opportunity. The country had an average age of 28 and some of the fastest-growing incomes in the world. Millions of young adults had disposable cash, but very few domestic clothing brands were designing apparel specifically for them. Bewakoof capitalized on this by turning social media into a product pipeline. They monitored Facebook to see which jokes, memes, and slang terms were circulating in college dorms, and they printed that exact internet culture directly onto t-shirts. They achieved what business schools call product market fit. Customers bought these shirts for a specific reason, to signal their identity. They purchased a tangible piece of internet culture to show they belonged to a specific, digitally native generation. But riding a demographic wave is very different from building a resilient company. A massive addressable market gets you off the ground, but it doesn't guarantee you can stay in the air. As more brands realized how lucrative this youth market was, competition spiked. To keep growing, Bewakoof used their venture capital to buy market share. They aggressively promoted cash on delivery and offered completely free returns to lower the barrier for new buyers. This data visualization breaks down the unit economics of a single 300 rupee t-shirt order. As you can see, that entire revenue bar gets eaten alive when a customer decides to return the item. Reverse logistics, paying for return shipping, warehouse handling, and restocking, can cost a business between 150 to 1,500 rupees per order. Now, look what happens when you scale that model up. E-commerce data in India shows that about 1 in 3 apparel items gets returned. As order volume multiplies, those reverse logistics deficits completely overwhelm the profit margins. You are mathematically bleeding cash with every extra sale. If your underlying economics are broken, scale is the enemy. Pouring investor money into unhealthy growth doesn't fix a leaky bucket. It just empties the reservoir faster. Meanwhile, direct competitors took a very different path. The Sold store, which targeted the exact same demographic, largely avoided the discount trap. Instead of burning capital on free returns, they invested heavily in high-quality physical retail spaces. In modern apparel, a physical store acts as a trust-building machine. A customer walks in, feels the fabric, tries on a medium, and understands the fit. Once they trust the sizing, their future online orders are far less likely to be returned, immediately improving the brand's digital profitability. Competitors also secured exclusive licensing agreements for popular TV shows and movies. Both the physical footprint and the licensing are what investors call a moat, a competitive advantage that rivals cannot easily replicate. Bewakoof had no exclusive licenses, no proprietary technology, and no physical trust machine. Their primary advantage was being slightly faster at printing viral memes. Without a defensible moat, their billion-rupee valuation was entirely exposed to the whims of the market. In 2020, those whims shifted violently. Pandemic lockdowns emptied college campuses and erased the social environments where Bewakoof's apparel thrived. At the same time, the core audience aged out. Millennials were replaced by Gen Z, a demographic driven by global creators rather than localized Facebook memes. To keep cash flowing, Bewakoof pivoted. They started manufacturing and selling survival goods like disposable surgical face masks and hand sanitizer. The problem was that masks and sanitizers are commodities. People bought them out of strict necessity, completely ignoring the brand logo printed on the packaging. This dragged the company into a vicious price war on platforms like Amazon, where profit margins were virtually non-existent. Chasing a temporary spike in demand might look good on a quarterly revenue sheet, but trading your core brand identity for a commodity cash grab destroys long-term business relevance. The final blow arrived in 2022. The pandemic tech boom ended, central banks hiked interest rates, and the startup ecosystem plunged into a brutal funding winter. This line graph illustrates the exact moment the market flipped. As global interest rates spike upwards, you can see the volume of venture capital plummeting. Investors instantly stopped subsidizing cash-burning startups. Because Bewakoof lacked intellectual property and relied on an expired trend formula, they were left stranded. That year, the Aditya Birla Group offered to buy Bewakoof for 200 crore rupees. It is easy to look at an 80% drop in valuation and call it a tragic failure, but in reality, this offer was an incredibly fortunate lifeboat for a highly exposed company. The peak 1,000 crore valuation was a mirage. It was a number inflated by an era of cheap capital and a growth-at-all-costs mindset, rather than the structural reality of the business. Achieving initial success requires product-market fit. Surviving the long haul requires continuous market fit and a true moat to protect it. When a formula breaks down, the smartest business decision is often recognizing the shift and taking the exit.